Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another deep dive, and this one, this one is taking us straight into the heart of Thai politics. You know, we always say that things are never dull in Thailand, and, well, this week is no exception.
Oh, yeah, you're telling me this is a story ripped straight from the headlines.
And we have a whole stack of newspaper articles here covering this week's events, and it's, let's just say there's a lot to unpack.
It seems like everyone's got an opinion on this one, and all sides are really making their voices heard.
So for our listeners who may not be following every twist and turn of Thai politics, we're talking about the return of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. After 17 years of exile, he is back in Thailand. And, it's causing quite a stir, to say the least.
Yeah, you could say that again. I mean, just think about it for a second. 17 years, that's a long time to be away from your home country and to come back under these circumstances. It's pretty extraordinary.
It really is. And, our mission for this deep dive is to figure out, what does it all mean? Is this just a symbolic move, or is this a sign of some major political shifts on the horizon?
Yeah, I think those are the big questions on everyone's mind right now. And honestly, those are the questions we're going to try to answer today.
Exactly. And to do that, we're going to go through all these articles we have here, looking at it from, all sides. We're going to try to understand what's being said by Thaksin's supporters, by his opponents, by everyone in between.
Because even if you're not living in Thailand, this has got global implications, When a figure like Thaksin comes back onto the scene, it sends ripples across the whole region.
You're right about that. So let's jump right in, shall we? One of the things that really caught my eye as I was reading these articles was just how strategically Thaksin chose to make his return.
Yeah, it wasn't just a quiet arrival slip back into the country unnoticed. That's not really Thaksin's style, is it?
Yeah. No, not at all. He chose to make his comeback at a PheuThai party seminar in Hua Hin. So right from the get-go, he's putting himself right back at the center of the political stage.
Exactly. And it's a very deliberate choice of venue, don't you think? This seminar was all about equipping PheuThai MPs with, the knowledge and the skills to face upcoming challenges.
So essentially, they're getting ready for the next round of political battles.
Yeah.
And who's there to give them a pep talk and lay out the strategy? None other than Thaksin himself.
It's classic Thaksin, isn't it? He's never been one to shy away from the spotlight.
And the timing of this is really interesting, too, because, there's actually an ongoing investigation into whether Thaksin has been influencing the party from outside the country.
Right. So it's like he's saying, I'm not hiding anymore. I'm here front and center.
And that message is coming through loud and clear in all these articles.
Yeah.
Both his supporters and his critics are acknowledging that, Thaksin is back and he's ready to make his presence felt.
And he didn't just show up and smile and wave. He came with a message.
Oh, yeah. He had a lot to say, especially when it came to the economy.
That's always been his strong suit, hasn't it? That focus on economic growth and development.
He even went so far as to warn about potential trade issues with the U.S. under President Trump. He basically said that Thailand needs to be prepared for the possibility of increased tariffs.
Which is, a very real concern for a country so reliant on exports.
And it's interesting because he didn't just say, oh no, this is going to be bad. He actually suggested some pretty radical solutions.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you about next. What were some of those ideas he was throwing out there?
Well, one of the most eyebrow-raising ones was his suggestion that Thailand should consider adopting cryptocurrency. He even talked about, potential sandbox trials in tourist hotspots like Phuket and Hua Hin.
So basically, he's thinking about how to position Thailand at the forefront of the digital economy. It's pretty forward-thinking, especially for someone who's been, out of the political game for so long.
It shows that he's still very much engaged with global trends and, thinking about how Thailand can stay competitive on the world stage.
But it's also vintage Thaksin in a way. He's always been a proponent of innovation and taking risks.
And I think that's part of what makes him such a polarizing figure. Mm-hmm. Some people see him as, a visionary leader.
Right. Someone who's willing to think outside the box and push for bold new ideas.
While others see him as reckless or even dangerous.
Right. They worry that he might be too quick to embrace untested ideas or, that he might be prioritizing flashy solutions over practical ones.
And that's the debate that's been raging in Thailand for, decades now. It's like he represents this tension between the desire for progress and the fear of instability.
And it's important to remember that context as we go through all these articles. We're not just talking about economic policies, we're talking about deeply held beliefs and values.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those beliefs and values are what make Thai politics so fascinating and so complex.
But let's go back to Thaksin's economic vision for a second. Because it wasn't just about cryptocurrency and, the latest tech trends.
Right. He also emphasized some pretty fundamental economic goals. Like he was really adamant that Thailand's GDP needs to grow at least 5%.
Otherwise, he argued Thailand will fall behind its neighbors in ASEAN.
And that's a fear that resonates with a lot of Thais. The fear of being left behind as other countries surge ahead.
It taps into this anxiety about whether Thailand is still on the right track.
And Thaksin was basically saying, we need to step up our game if we want to maintain our position in the region.
And he didn't just say, we need to do better. He actually laid out some pretty concrete steps to achieve that growth.
He was talking about the need for public-private partnerships, for shaking up debt-ridden state enterprises, even for tackling monopolies to lower those sky-high electricity bills.
It's like he came prepared with a whole economic playbook.
It was very detailed. You could see how he was really trying to appeal to both the business community and everyday Thais who are struggling with the cost of living.
And that's a key part of his strategy, I think. He's trying to present himself as the leader who can deliver both economic growth and social justice.
And let's not forget the way he delivered that message. He brought back some of those classic Thaksinisms that, you just can't help but chuckle at.
Yeah, there was a certain swagger in his voice in these quotes. It was like he was saying, I'm back and I'm not afraid of anyone.
I mean, the quote that was plastered all over the newspapers was, "I'm not a pushover anymore."
Yeah, that's classic Thaksin, short and to the point.
But then he even took it a step further with the even more memorable, "Even the pigs know I'm not a pushover anymore."
Okay, that one definitely got a laugh out of me. It's like he knows how to use humor to connect with people.
Yeah, and that's been one of his strengths throughout his career. That ability to speak in a way that resonates with everyday Thais.
It's like he's saying, I'm one of you. I understand your struggles.
But that doesn't mean he was all smiles and jokes this week. He also took some pretty public swipes at his coalition partners.
Oh, yeah. That was another thing that caught my attention as I was reading these articles.
He was criticizing them for skipping out on a parliamentary debate about some tax decrees. It's like he was calling them out for not being there when he needed them.
It definitely created some awkwardness and, raised questions about the stability of the ruling coalition.
Right. Because if they can't even agree on something as fundamental as taxes, how are they going to work together on all the other challenges facing Thailand?
It makes you wonder if this is a sign of some deeper tensions within the government.
Or if it's just Thaksin, asserting his dominance and reminding everyone who's really in charge.
Well, that's one of the things we'll have to keep an eye on as this story unfolds.
Definitely. And speaking of tensions, things got a bit heated with the whole Kokut Island issue this week.
Oh yeah, I was wondering when we were going to get to that one.
This is where things get really interesting because we start to see how Thaksin's return is playing out on the regional stage. So just to give our listeners some context, Kokut is an island off the coast of Thailand. And while there have been some media reports coming out of Cambodia claiming that the island actually belongs to them.
Which is, a very sensitive issue, to say the least. Border disputes between Thailand and Cambodia have been simmering for decades. And any suggestion that Kokut belongs to Cambodia, well, it triggers some very strong nationalistic feelings.
Exactly. And Thaksin was very quick to address this issue head on. He said in no uncertain terms that Kokut 100% belongs to Thailand. There was no room for ambiguity there. He was drawing a line in the sand.
And what's even more interesting is that he used this controversy to talk about the bigger problem of fake news and AI manipulation. He was urging people to be critical thinkers, but, double check their facts and not just believe everything they read online.
It was a really smart move, I think, because it allowed him to position himself as a defender of truth and Thai sovereignty. He was using this hot-button issue to promote media literacy, which, is something we can all get behind.
It was a very savvy way to connect with people's anxieties about, the changing media landscape and the erosion of trust.
Absolutely. But even with that message of unity and, calling for critical thinking, not everyone is buying it. We've got some former political rivals, even figures from the yellow shirt and red shirt movements banding together against Thaksin and the PheuThai government.
Wow, that's a pretty unusual alliance, isn't it? I mean, those groups have historically been at odds with each other.
Right. They represent very different ideologies and, have often been on opposite sides of Thailand's political divides.
But it seems like they've found common ground in their distrust of Thaksin.
Yeah, it's like he's the one figure who can unite them in their opposition.
And they're not holding back either. They're raising concerns about everything from potential concessions to Cambodia to allegations of corruption to, the idea that Thaksin is trying to evade justice.
It's a potent mix of accusations, and it really shows just how deep the animosity towards Thaksin runs.
And it's going to be fascinating to see how this alliance plays out because it could be a real thorn in Thaksin's side.
Yeah, they could potentially mobilize a lot of people and really challenge his influence.
So it's like we have all these moving pieces right now. We have Thaksin back in the game with his bold economic vision and his classic Thaksin swagger.
We have his coalition partners who seem to be, a little bit uneasy about his return. And then we have this unexpected alliance of former rivals who are united in their opposition.
And all of this is playing out against the backdrop of, regional tensions and global economic uncertainty.
So yeah, as you said earlier, things are never dull in Thailand.
Yeah.
And this story's just getting started.
I think we're only at the beginning of this political drama, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it all unfolds.
That it is. And that's where we keep digging into these articles, try to understand all the different perspectives and try to figure out what it all means for the future of Thailand.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll be back after the break to unpack even more of this fascinating story.
It really highlights the complexity of Thai politics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's rarely black and white, right? You've got all these layers of history and ideology, personal rivalries all swirling together. And sometimes it's like those who were once enemies find themselves united against a common foe.
It's like a real-life political thriller, and the newspapers are eating it up. Every article seems to have a different take on Thaksin's return. Some celebrating it as a triumph, others decrying it as, a threat to democracy.
Exactly. It reflects those deep political divisions in Thailand. And, those don't just vanish overnight. It's almost as though the country's holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next.
So will Thaksin use his newfound influence to push for those bold economic reforms he was talking about? Will he be able to rally enough support to actually get things done? Well, that's certainly one very real possibility. I mean, being back in the country gives him a lot more leverage to influence the government and really push for his vision. He's got that political capital, the connections, and a proven track record. I mean, all of that could work in his favor.
But what if it backfires? I mean, his return could also fuel those existing political tensions and lead to even more instability.
Yeah.
I mean, those opposition groups are already mobilizing, and they don't seem to be backing down anytime soon.
Yeah, that's the other side of the coin, isn't it? His presence could be seen as provocative, even destabilizing to his opponents. We could see protests, legal challenges, anything that could deepen the political deadlock.
And let's not forget those coalition partners he publicly criticized. Will they stick around? Or could this lead to a major government shakeup?
Yeah, coalition governments in Thailand are notoriously fragile, and his criticisms could push those already strained relationships to the breaking point. We might see defections or even the collapse of the government altogether.
So it's a high-stakes gamble, this comeback, with the potential for both positive change and, further turmoil.
Absolutely. We're really witnessing a pivotal moment in Thai politics, and the implications of this will resonate for years to come. I mean, even seemingly minor details are being analyzed and interpreted in vastly different ways.
Like how he arrived at that PheuThai seminar.
By train.
By train. Some articles framed it as, a down-to-earth gesture connecting with the common people, while others saw it as a calculated attempt to evoke nostalgia for his populist past.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how every action, every symbol is scrutinized and imbued with this political meaning. It's like a simple train ride becomes this Rorschach test for people's perceptions of Thaksin.
And the photo of him with his daughter, the current prime minister and her predecessor, all on that train together, it's a striking image.
Oh yeah, that one definitely made the rounds. That image speaks volumes about the Shinawatra family's enduring influence on Thai politics. I mean, even during his exile, Thaksin remained this powerful force behind the scenes, shaping the political landscape, and some might argue paving the way for his daughter's rise to power.
It's incredible how much one family has impacted Thai politics over the past 2 decades. And now with Thaksin back in the game, that influence is likely to grow even stronger.
It's a testament to their political savvy and, their ability to connect with a large segment of the population. But it also kind of underscores the challenges of building a truly inclusive and representative democracy when you have so much political power concentrated in the hands of so few.
So where do we go from here? We've got this complex political landscape, this powerful family, a nation on edge. What are the key things we should be watching for in the coming weeks and months?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to keep an eye on the economy. Thaksin made it clear that economic growth is a top priority, but the question is, can he actually influence government policies enough to achieve that goal?
And even if he does, will those policies be well received by the public? Will people see them as beneficial or as, further widening the gap between the rich and the poor?
You're right, public perception is going to be crucial here. For any economic reform to succeed, people need to feel like they're benefiting, like the system is fair. If they feel left behind, it could lead to social unrest and really undermine the government's legitimacy.
High stakes indeed. What else is on your radar?
Well, the other thing I'm watching very closely is the power dynamics within the ruling coalition. Remember those cracks we talked about? We need to see if those tensions escalate further or if they manage to, patch things up and maintain a united front.
And if the coalition fractures, could that open the door for new political alliances or even a changing government?
Oh, anything is possible in Thai politics. Shifting alliances and unexpected political maneuvers are all part of the game. It's what keeps things interesting.
Okay, so we're watching the economy and the ruling coalition. What's the third thing to keep in mind?
Well, I think we need to pay attention to the opposition's strategy. They've shown that they can unite against Thaksin, but can they turn that unity into a concrete political platform? Can they offer a compelling alternative that resonates with voters beyond their core base?
That's their biggest challenge, I think. They can't just be anti-Thaksin. They need to present a clear vision for Thailand's future.
Exactly. They need to articulate a vision that addresses people's concerns and offers, tangible solutions.
So it's a battle for hearts and minds as well as for political power.
That's the essence of politics, isn't it? It's about winning over people, convincing them that you have the best answers to the challenges they face. And in Thailand, those challenges are particularly complex and interconnected.
The country is grappling with issues of democracy, economic inequality, regional tensions, the rapid pace of technological change.
And now with Thaksin back in the mix, those issues have become even more amplified, more urgent.
It's like he's thrown a wrench into the works and forced everyone to reevaluate their positions and their strategies.
Yeah. Politics is rarely static. It's a dynamic process, always evolving, always full of surprises and unexpected turns.
And it's a process that directly affects the lives of millions of people. The choices that politicians make have real-world consequences.
That's why it's so crucial to stay informed, to understand the issues, and to engage in, thoughtful dialogue about the future we want to build.
So we've got these three key areas to watch the economy: the ruling coalition, the opposition strategy, but ultimately the future of Thailand is in the hands of its people.
It's the people who will decide whether Thaksin's return will be a catalyst for progress or, a descent into further division.
And that decision will be shaped by their hopes, their fears, their vision for Thailand, a vision for a future filled with both opportunities and challenges.
And the choices made today will determine which path Thailand ultimately takes.
It feels like we've been dropped right into the middle of some high-stakes political drama, and we're all just kind of waiting to see what the next act holds,
Yeah, it's true. Thaksin's return has really thrown a wrench into the works, hasn't it? It's forced everyone, the government, the opposition, even everyday citizens, to reevaluate their positions and figure out, what their next move is going to be.
And it's amazing to me how even small details like, his choice to arrive by train are being analyzed for some kind of hidden meaning. It's a reminder that in Thai politics, symbolism and perception matter just as much as concrete actions, sometimes even more.
Oh, absolutely. Every move is scrutinized, every word is dissected, and the media plays a huge role in shaping those perceptions. It's fascinating to see how different outlets spin the same events to fit their own narratives.
That's what really struck me as we were going through these articles. It's like there are multiple versions of reality depending on which newspaper you're reading. It really makes you realize how important it is to be a critical consumer of information and not just take everything at face value.
Especially in this age of instant news and social media, where misinformation can spread like wildfire. We need to constantly be questioning our assumptions, considering different perspectives, and being wary of those easy answers that sound too good to be true.
Thaksin himself even brought this up when he was talking about that coconut controversy and the dangers of fake news and AI manipulation. It's a reminder that even seemingly straightforward issues can be distorted and twisted to serve someone's agenda.
Exactly. We need to develop those critical thinking skills, to navigate this really complex information landscape, to separate fact from fiction, and to make informed decisions.
It's like we need to equip ourselves with a mental toolkit to analyze everything we see and hear, to ask ourselves who benefits from this narrative, What are the underlying motives?
Yeah.
And what are the potential consequences?
Those are excellent questions to keep in mind, and that's really the essence of what we try to do in these deep dives, right? To provide you with the context and the analytical tools to make sense of complex issues.
It's not just about knowing the facts. It's about understanding the why behind those facts. It's about connecting the dots and seeing the bigger picture.
Exactly. And sometimes that means acknowledging that there isn't one single right answer, you know? There are often multiple perspectives, each with its own validity, and our goal is to help you navigate those complexities and draw your own conclusions.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Thaksin's return, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to ponder? What's that one thought-provoking question they should consider as they continue to follow this unfolding drama?
I would ask, what does Thaksin's return ultimately mean for Thailand's future? Will it be a force for positive change, or will it lead to, deeper divisions and instability?
It's a question with no easy answers, but it's one that every Thai citizen is going to have to grapple with in the months and years to come. Their choices, their actions, their voices will shape the direction of their country.
And those choices will have lasting consequences, not just for Thailand, but for the region as a whole. I mean, the world is watching this political drama unfold, and the stakes are incredibly high.
So to our listener out there, stay engaged, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions. The future of Thailand is being written right now, and every voice matters. That's all the time we have for today, but thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Thai politics. We'll be back next week with another fascinating story from the headlines. Until then, stay curious.